On this episode of How to Survive Heat Stroke in Your Garage, we'll be rebuilding transmissions. It's a brisk 108 here in Austin today, so perfect day to work in the shop. Can't wait. So in the prepping stage here, I built a mount to mount the transmission to hang it from. And this is how you need to set them up in order to get all the guts in and out. So I just built this, mounted it to my stand there, and of course drained it out for all of eternity. The worst part of rebuilding the transmission is dealing with the stupid fluid. Other than that, it's actually not that bad of a deal. You know, one of the things over the years that most people ask about is doing transmissions. I know guys that rebuild motors, rear ends, you name it. For some reason, the transmission is like black magic, and nobody wants to touch them. But they're actually pretty easy if you just can read a manual. Other than that, it's just nuts and bolts. So far, I've taken the transmission and I power washed everything, degreased it, hit it with a wire wheel, flipped it upside down, drained it. It did as much as I possibly could to get as much fluid out of it. So now that it's hung up, time to disassemble. First thing is to pull the pump. Taking a look inside, it's actually quite clean in here and nothing appears to be burned up. So this thing's actually in good shape. Now I'll take off the pan. Just that way we can place the store bolts. Always forget one. Pan is actually very clean, and it smells prettier than a paid lady. I don't know what kind of funky silicone that is, but it's got a magnet for the oil fill, and there's no metal on it, so that is a really good sign for this thing here. At this point, I could probably put it back together and go on home and get some cold ones to sit down. I'll go ahead and pull the bottom here, tail piece. Yeah, so the tail shaft doesn't really have anything in there. You can see the little speedometer gear in there. So inside there is a bearing. We're going to have to replace that. Other than that, this is all pretty good shape. This here is the filter. We'll go ahead and just pull that guy off. And it is clean. Little metal specks in there, I think that would be normal, but other than that, this thing is in good shape. There you go. Gotta get that cleaned up and get that bearing out of there. So this right here is the kick down. You know, when you whomp on it, it pulls this lever and drops it down a gear. Not want to retain this as he's going to use it for power shifting. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that pin and get rid of it altogether. Got that off. Now, this is where all the magic happens in the transmission. This is the, what the hell you call it? The magic stuff. I'm a mechanic, not an engineer, so you gotta ask other people questions. But we're going to be putting a shift kit in here to improve the shifting, because it's going a bit of a nostalgia race car. This channel isn't necessarily a how-to channel, more of a how not to do something, but you know, a bit of an overview kind of a deal. But like anything, you know, if you want to do something, you can do it. There's plenty of resources, you know, books and everything else. I'm actually watching a YouTube video right now of how to do this. So, hey, what do I know? So underneath this gasket, there's some little ball bearings in there, used for check valves. So make sure that you lose them at the same time to make it that much more frustrating. And hope to God you have a diagram to figure out where to put them back. Oh, there we go. So yeah, you got steel balls, just like when you were a teenager. There's a little filter screen in there. This is clean, so that's good. Gonna clean all this out with some brake clean and figure out where the balls go back and put it all back together. Make sure to change out, you know, my rubber seals and everything that needs to be done. So I got all the clutches out. That's what this is here. This is the bottom, and in between each metal plate you have the clutch, which looks like a piece of cork. I have no idea what it's made out of, but it looks I don't know, expensive. And again, this thing is in perfect condition, and they all stack together. Each gear will have its own clutch pack. And it's all reassembled like this. This piece on top, and then the retaining ring. So I think that's going to be first gear. Now I'll start extracting all of this stuff here. Transmission's got a whole lot of parts in them. Start replacing the clutch. Pulled the C-clip, pulled that all out. You know, just gonna go ahead and reassemble it. Some pretty basic stuff here. This is second gear, first gear, third gear. At least I think. It's really not very intimidating. It's actually pretty simple, but you know, we're getting there. So I ran into a couple problems. I was out here on Wednesday or Thursday, one of those days. It was 108 degrees. I was hot. The camera was hot, and apparently the camera didn't like it and turned off, and I of course lost a bunch of stuff. But after milling around for a couple days, I'm back out here, and it's only a brisk 90, so it's feeling much better. Anyways, got this piece of junk taken apart. Now I'm just reassembling it. Although I did find an interesting thing. When I pulled apart the accumulator, there's supposed to be a piston in there and a spring, and then a little cover. Well, the spring was missing. And that's more than likely why this thing was pulled over the car that it was in. Because clearly it was completely rebuilt with very little mileage. I didn't have dirt inside. I mean, you seen when I took it apart. I'm not sure what the accumulator does, but probably is important, I imagine. So I'm going to have to order one of those up. I'm going to reassemble this thing and hopefully have it done in by now. This channel was never really meant to be a how-to channel. It's more of a can-do channel. One of the things that people ask me the most is, how do you know how to do that? Well, I had to learn it, mostly because I'm cheap and I couldn't afford to pay anybody. So you pick up a book, you read stuff, and you figure out how to do things. And that really is the heart of what I think is important in this, is just having the confidence to jump in and do things. Because let's face it, the learning curve is you know, where the most interest comes from. If you know how to do everything, then kind of what's the point? It's all about learning new things. You know, so you pick up some stuff and you dig in and you screw things up and you learn from it, and hopefully the next time you don't screw it up as bad. I always look at the first time you try something as being the rough draft or a work in progress. After all, Thomas Edison invented the light bulb about 1,000 times. He had 999 rough drafts, but 1,000 got it. So if you want to know how to actually rebuild your transmission properly, as opposed to learn from some half-wit on the internet, I will tag the videos that I watched. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the tail shaft in here. You'll see down inside here, which you can't see, is the piston. Now there's a spring pack and some seals and stuff that go in there, and which creates the hydraulic pressure to operate the clutches. Anyways, I'm going to reassemble the tail shaft here. I inspected everything. All my bearing shaft contact points are all good. The bearings inside are all good. Again, everything was replaced. Drop the clutch basket in there now. Steel. Again, if you look at this thing, it's got all these different teeth on it, so it has to go clocked this way and as well as clocked this way. So it takes a little bit to quite figure out how to get it in there. See what I mean? It's not so easy. Well, sounds like it was simple. If you're not a half-wit. There we go. The way these work is when it releases pressure, the whole clutch pack slides apart and will spin freely, and then when it creates the hydraulic pressure, it squeezes everything, and that's what locks in the gear. And then goes the top piece here. There's a bearing in there. You know, so you gotta make sure that's all nice and tight. But again, you know, these are good. The last one of these I did was completely burnt, so it was take the whole thing down to every conceivable piece, strip the inside, clean the inside. It was a nightmare. This thing is a peach, kind of like me. So I realized I put this upside down. Apparently it only goes one way. So after all that's assembled correctly, because I had to look at the book, because I put some parts in backwards, it's fine. I'm a professional. Drop the C-clip in and the locking pin. This little retention spring to keep everything in the right tension. And then we're ready to go on to the next piece. Just a big C-clip. All right, I got that. That was hard. On to the next piece. There's a little bearing on here, or a washer. That's going to go in first. It's got a little tang it locks into. Put this guy in, give it a spin, lock in place. And I think this is called a planetary gear. So these are the forward drives. I already loaded all the clutches up in the other day. I'll just drop this in place and just work it in there a little bit. Don't afraid to be too aggressive, you know, like your mistress treats you. That's locked in. The next is this is called the kick down band. I don't have any idea what it does, but apparently it's part of the kick down. Not sure if I need to put it in there since the customer doesn't want a kick down set up, but I figured I would put it in anyway. And it just locks in place here. Little slot it pops into. It's got a little slot it pops into. And bada bing, done. Take and drop the last bit of clutches in here. Figure out this Chinese torture puzzle. Same thing. Metal clutch, metal clutch, metal clutch. And the last piece is the wavy shim. Apparently this has waves in it in order to soften the shift when you drop it into gear. I guess in race transmissions you take this out, which is probably why you chirp the gears into going into gears, but in this case we're going to keep it. That drops in last, and then the pump assembly will go on top of that, and then the drive is assembled. Now I'll go ahead and drop the pump on there. Got new seals on it, new outside seals, did all the inside. You get the idea. Alright, got it up here on my workbench so we can do the bottom here. First thing we'll do is put the governor back in, which I don't know how the heck this thing works or what exactly does, but as this thing spins, these little weights spin out and do something. I don't know what or why or how, but apparently it needs it, so we'll just stick it right back on there. Got a new seal on there. Tap that into place, if I can find the hammer. It's got this little funny spring, and boom, done. Let's put the tail shaft on. Now to install the valve body, I have a B&M shift kit improver for this. So I'm going to go ahead and first thing to do is install the check balls. Now I only need one, but they give me 4, being under the assumption I'm going to probably lose 3. Smart thinking on their part. You got one location where that little ball goes, and there it goes, and it's fucking gone. Alright. When you got hot dogs for fingers, it's sort of hard to do stuff. Drop that in the spot. Then just a matter of installing the gaskets. You know, throw a little grease on there. The whole thing's in alignment. There's there. Next is the separator plate. Again, a little bit of grease on there. And then valve body. Start putting in bolts. See, not that hard. So the next thing we got to do is install these separator plates. These come with the B&M kit, and they just go right back here at the base. Then you got this plate which has a different groove, and I think that's designed for some, I don't know, special race car crap. Anyways, that goes there, and then your stock cover goes over that. Drop into 7 bolts. Next thing we want to do is install a new pan filter. Now to put the pan gasket on, and we'll be done. Making sure the gasket's on right is the first start. And there you go, one rebuilt transmission. One more thing millennials can't do. But if there's something you want to do, you certainly can do it. There's plenty of resources out there, don't be afraid. You really just have to have the confidence to, not care if you screw something up or too stupid to know it. Either way, it works out. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. See you next time.